Hello and welcome to On the Record, the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. 5 weeks after this monster storm hit the two northernmost islands in the country, the struggle continues to return to a sense of normalcy on those affected islands. The return of essential services, the cleanup, consistent medical care, functioning airports, and that all-important maintenance of law and order. The progress has been steady in some areas, while some groups continue to complain of lagging responses. This week, we continue our focus on Grand Bahama. Every morning before 8 a.m., the C.A. Smith building is buzzing with activities. Most government agencies and services are housed in this building, but since the storm, it's become the command center. There are daily briefings here where the local and international agencies share information and try to coordinate activities. It's where NEMA's Grand Bahama coordinator, Kate Forbes Smith, gets a bird's eye view of the relief efforts. She's one of 3 island coordinators responsible for recovery.
The Prime Minister had asked me to be one of the coordinators that he had appointed. I took this role on September 10th. As coordinator, my job is really to organize and plan on the ground. We have to look at our distribution points on the island, which we are doing. Currently, our main warehouse is operating out of the Freeport Ship Services warehouse. And Jeremy Cafferata has been wonderful to the government and the people of Grand Bahama in allowing us to do all we needed to do up to this point in his warehouse, and we want to thank him publicly for that. But the problem is he has an ongoing business concern, and there are also a number of other NGOs and individuals who are receiving goods in that warehouse. So it's time for NEMA to move into a NEMA warehouse run by NEMA, and so that we can put the protocols in place to better serve the public. We also have a distribution point at the airport that we've just set up. We have to get that manned and organized. We also put some protocols in place for West Grand Bahama, particularly at the Old Bahama Bay, where on weekends boats are coming in and bringing in supplies. And I'm hearing a lot of things that K. Smith shut down all the distribution points in Grand Bahama. Well, I find that difficult because we didn't have any distribution points in Grand Bahama the way we should have. What we are doing is setting up those points properly so that there's fair and equitable distribution of goods and supplies to everybody on Grand Bahama Island. We will also be setting up a distribution point at the NEMA warehouse at the Old Catholic High location as well. So part of what I've been doing is trying to organize and reorganize what was not being done so that we can effectively serve the public.
There were some concerns about long lines at some of the distribution centers. What would have led to that one? And secondly, have you addressed that problem?
Well, first of all, the one long line that everybody is talking about is the event that we had on Saturday. And every Saturday we have an event called Operation Relief Saturday. So the Saturday before that, what we did is we packed goods in the warehouse at Freeport Ship Services, and we distributed them door to door to several areas like Hawksbill, Regency Park, Hudson Estates, Queens Cove. That's what we did almost 2 Saturdays ago. The Saturday pass, what we wanted to do is we wanted to really kind of have a wide and broader distribution. So Elnet Marine came to see me about some goods he wanted to donate. And we had a number of trailers that had just come in that week, and I wanted to give the public the ability to get those goods in the widest possible way. So we decided we were having Operation Relief Saturday was going to be almost a fun day. So we had bouncing castle for the kids. We had about 4 to 6 barbers who came out to do free haircuts for people. We had face painting for the kids. We had our support services there, customs, inland revenue, social services, labor department, so that they could speak to people who wanted information. So it was not only a distribution of relief goods, it was a day of community, and that's what we were trying to do. And I apologize that the lines were very long, but what that says is the need is very great. And believe it or not, people who were on that line, they came, we never were supposed to start until midday, but they came early, so we started early. And we served the last few folks around 8 o'clock. And people were orderly. People were not complaining. I'm sure that there were people who were tired. I'm sure there may have been some people who were complaining. But what we saw was a community of outpouring of love and neighborhood. And as I said, that in our minds gave us the widest distribution possible. And people talk about the lines. That's the need that exists. And we have to address that as best we can. The other thing is, we did not only just distribute from the Independence Park on Saturday. We had our trucks come in from West Grand Bahama, East Grand Bahama, taking supplies out. And we have a standard group of guys who are on the road every day distributing water and relief supplies through all the neighborhoods. It's almost a round that they're making. So the distribution is not at any one location. Let me dispel that myth. We're opening more distribution points. We're looking for a building so that we can do a clothes depot, so that we can distribute some clothes that are coming in. So we're trying our best to serve the public.
One of the complaints we would have heard from people in the eastern part of the island is they haven't seen a lot of people, they haven't seen a lot of relief, and that seems to be where the majority of the devastation is. I would have heard you speak to even some of that this morning in your meeting, but what is being done to address those needs, particularly those communities like your High Rock and even further east into McLeanstown, where the devastation is really bad?
Now, what I'm understanding and what we're trying to do, Administrator Bowe has a distribution in place for residents of East Grand Bahama. And I'm sure that you may hear from some people who may not be getting relief. Sometimes you miss people. You're not going to get everyone the way you would like. But what I do know is happening is she has a distribution every couple of days. She takes it all in a particular day, and she tries to get it out to the residents. With the help of NEMA coordinating that. But to answer your question, what we need to do, see, a lot of the residents in East Grand Bahama, from what I'm told, are not necessarily living there at the moment. And so they go there during the day and they come back down into Freeport. So sometimes you don't catch them. But what I know she's been doing is trying to do these mass distribution or giving it to a particular person or a group in the residence, and they have a place where they're storing the goods. And I think you should talk to her because there is a system in place there. NEMA, as a group, we will be going down into East Grand Bahama on Monday. And the Administrator Bowe and her team, the Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama is planning to be with us as well. But this is not just our first trip, but we're going again on Monday. So we have to coordinate how we distribute to East Grand Bahama because, as I said, they're not just sitting there in a home because some of them have lost their homes. So we've been trying to locate them where they are, and they've been trying to organize kind of a group distribution.
I know that this is a police concern, and we are planning to speak with the police about this, but a lot of people have complained that they are victims of looting, that people are coming in and taking what little they do have and even the supplies they get. From a NEMA perspective, are you talking to police and trying to coordinate some more security to deal with these issues?
Absolutely, and we talk about it every morning in our morning briefing, that residents have called me, they've called other persons in our office, and they're saying that people are still looting. The ACP has said to me that they have police officers in these areas. Now, if we have to step it up, we have to talk to the police about that, because clearly that is the case. But the police is aware that this looting is going on, has been going on, and they've tried to address it based on the number of officers they have dispersed all over the island.
Why was it necessary to have specific coordinators representing NEMA on the affected islands? You're representing Grand Bahama. Abaco has two. Why was it necessary, I guess, to decentralize that a bit more?
I'm not sure that we're decentralizing anything. I think what has happened, first of all, Abaco has great devastation. And I could see the need to put individuals on the island. I don't know how they're working in terms of who has responsibility for what. But I could see the need to have coordinators on the ground who are focused on what's happening on the ground. And for me personally, the NEMA structure is still in place. What we are trying to do is strengthen the NEMA organization on the ground here. And that's what this is all about. And it's unfortunate that we wait for this kind of time to be political. I'm going to have to leave that to the opposition and those members of the opposition who want to make this tragedy a political tragedy. I'm really focused on helping people. And it's so important for us to help people and to understand where people are. And that's what I'm about. That's what this NEMA organization on the ground is about. And I'm going to use my energies to try and help every Bahamian that I can help, with the help of everybody else working on the team here in Grand Bahama.
Are you challenged, though, with having Freeport almost operational in some respects? People come in and you see Freeport, you see life returning. But when you go, for instance, to a Marsh Harbor, you know, the devastation meets you almost from the airport. Do you think that people don't get the same sense of urgency when they're looking at Grand Bahama as when they're looking at Abaco?
I think so. I think because sanitation services, for example, has done a very good job in the cleanup around the airport and generally around the harbor area, and in also the neighborhoods too. So you may think nothing has happened, but if you look at this map, Jerome, you can see the flooded areas in Grand Bahama. Everything in the green means that it's flooded. So people ask me, what's the difference between this hurricane and the ones that we've had? The difference with this one is a significant amount of residences and businesses were underwater, significant. And so that's the big difference. And it has impacted businesses all over this island. It has impacted homes all over this island. So we have a lot of work to do in getting businesses up and running, getting people in their homes, and finding temporary housing for a number of people who have been totally displaced.
I've got to ask, what is the working relationship with the Port Authority in all of this?
We always have a great working relationship with all of the private entities on the island. The Port Authority, Sanitation Services, Grand Bahama Utility, the Power Company, even all of our big companies in the industrial community. See, everybody takes this very seriously, you know, and nobody is playing politics with this. Everybody is so focused in Grand Bahama on how do we rebuild this economy quickly, how do we get people in homes, how do we get these businesses operating. That is what serious people are doing and thinking about.
When we come back, a look at police operations on the island. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a balanced, true and open debate you've been looking for. And welcome back. This segment is brought to you by Generali Insurance. Just recently, a dusk to dawn curfew was proposed for Abaco after mounting incidents of looting and outright stealing forced authorities to put more boots on the ground. Meanwhile, in Grand Bahama, police have had their own challenges. Over at police headquarters, 36 new police recruits have now been deployed to provide support to the Grand Bahama force. That means 330 officers are now active on the island. Assistant Commissioner Samuel Butler is responsible for leading this division. Regular policing must now include new responsibilities for he and his officers now that the island is in recovery mode.
A lot of people in the affected areas have said to us that they are still victims of looting, that people are coming in onto their properties, particularly at night, and taking supplies, etc. What is being done to deal with that?
Okay. There definitely are several reports, and I could say from our records, persons have actually laid complaints with the police. We have some 22 complaints laid with the police, and that's residential and commercial. Some 10 of them would be commercial, and the remainder would be residential. Now, we know that everybody's not going to come and report their matters to the police, but we were happy for those who came forward that was was able to sensitize the police department as to what was going on, and particularly which area was being impacted most. And for the residential area, we generally we call the downtown area, and they were instances immediately after the storm. Unfortunately, some persons thought that they can go into stores and remove items, and we put a lid on that immediately by sending a number of officers, and we'll be able to cut that eventuality off. But then, our residential communities are even more widespread. And so for those persons who've come, and we've had the majority of the reports coming from the area that we call over the bridge, Dover Sound, and communities such. And obviously, after the storm, you know that basically that area was devastated by the storm, and persons just got out and left things, obviously unsecured, and many of the properties was destroyed to the point where they could not secure. And obviously, for them, I'm sure it was just perseverance of life and getting out to a place where they feel that they were going to be safe, and they just left everything behind. We have, once those instances came to our attention, that we placed in strong patrols in those areas. We have a 24-hour patrol system in those strongly impacted areas, and persons selected areas that they thought that they would find more valuables. And I kind of concluded that some persons are doing it out of criminality, that they want to go and steal. And I found that other persons are doing it out of thinking that they just can go and salvage things that are abundant. We've had any number of communications through various medium asking persons to refrain from entering persons' property despite what conditions they find the properties under. Gates are unlocked, doors are open, windows are broken as a result of the storm. It does not give an individual a right to just go and enter and say, oh, I see something I like. I see an old stove. I see, old in the mind because it's actually soiled and beat up by the storm. Or I see a television, I think I can take off a wall. Whether it's working or not, it belongs to an individual. You just cannot go and take person's property. We had several instances of arrest where we were able to arrest persons with properties, and we've already placed, I think, 15 persons before the court for those instances, and some persons with criminal backgrounds and some people without criminal backgrounds. And that's how I concluded that some persons just, based on the interview, thought that I just can go in, the house is all broken up, I can go and take something. They don't want these anymore. And in some instances, they're thinking, oh, these are rich people, they could replace it by the insurance. I could just go and take it. So old washers or so forth. And so we sent out the message, even as we've actually took persons before the court and captured by the media, and begging the public to leave individual properties alone. The police department is aware that the community is wide and spread out, and we are continuing to do the best we can in terms of making our presence felt. Every morning, every evening, and during the course of overnight, we are up and about in the community. It's posed some challenge to the police in terms of the resources that we actually have, but we are seeking to be as strategic as possible to ensure that every community is touched and our presence felt. And so I'm satisfied that with the resources that are available, that we're using it, and I must also give credit to officers who we are pushing above and beyond even the normal work hours, just to ensure that our presence are felt even in stronger ways. We have officers working up almost on a volunteer base up to 16 hours a day. And there's a lot of grounds to cover, but we are covering it. We talk from east end to west end, and it's not just focused in any one particular area. While we had more instances in certain areas, but we had a little touch in basically every area when we talk about those that came directly to our attention. And obviously, some instances were not reported, and maybe more events happened that were reported. And obviously, it's still opportunity to report if persons feel as though their properties were violated. And so police is open to receive those reports for various reasons, and we will do our best to continue to follow up.
Are you working along with, say, your defense force officers and military from other countries that may be on the ground here? I know in Abaco, for instance, there's a strong presence from other countries, but in Grand Bahama, are you working with the local defense force, and are there officers from agencies from other countries?
Yeah. Well, the law enforcement agencies represented here on the ground, predominantly the police, defense force. The defense force have under their control a number of international partners, law enforcement partners, and they're predominantly consumed with, while we're working together and coordinating activities, they are more associated with activities surrounding NAMA recovery. And while the police department is continuously looking after the policing, the general policing needs and overlapping in some instances. But there are so many activities happening, and we smile as we exchange dialogue between defense leaders and myself. We are stretched every day for an additional demand, and we are pleased to answer the call for those demands. And it's as simple as ensuring that areas of distributing various items done in an orderly fashion. It puts a demand to see some presence of law enforcement, whether you're giving out ice or clothing or food items, or whether just jumping on a truck and delivering door to door. So these are extraordinary circumstances, and it places those additional demand on the police department. But I'm pleased that the police rose to the occasion, and yes, as of yesterday, we received from the police side of the CARICOM policing partners 16 officers that will be joining us. They arrived here yesterday, and so they had a little rest period to get themselves together. This morning, they'll be up and about on the job, working along with us, and we were pleased to receive 16 of those, and who would continue to augment the resources that we actually have here. But the partnership with the Defense Force and Police has been a great partnership. It relieved a lot of the stress that the police department would have had to bear had it not been for the Defense Force working a little closer with the NEMO distribution and security of items at the distributing centers and the warehouses and the like, and lending helping hand and helping with packaging. And so while we have pockets of police doing a little all of that, but certainly it would have been even greater impact on our resource if the Defense Force did not step up and receive those international partners to assist.
Okay. And you've been responsible for helping to officially identify as well as search for the missing. Could you update us on that as well?
Yeah. Search and recovery continues, and is always a sad chapter to refer to when we talk about loss of life. And again, just speaking of it, we want to share our sympathy for those who have lost loved ones and family and friends, and just how it impacts the community.
Mm-hmm. And do you expect that you will identify more bodies going forward? I know in some instances this is the official count, but are there bodies that are still unidentified that are in your possession?
As we continue to grid search and move about, there's still a likelihood that we will come and recover more bodies. Again, we appeal to the general public who will be moving up about in the various communities. Please feel free to contact us if you observe a body or you have any suspicion by a foul odor, we would like to come to do the examination of that area. And so while we continue to appeal, and I also want to say on the other hand, thanks to the community who's been up and about also along with the police department and giving information that we've actually worked on and was able to recover bodies based on information provided to the police. And we want that partnership, police-community partnership, to continue. And while it's sad when we're arriving to a death, but at least bring closure to the family. So we would like to find people alive, but if we're not going to find them alive, we would like to know that family could bring closure to that aspect of their lives.
When we return, I'll look at the way forward for the northern campus of the University of the Bahamas.
You know, Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Ellison Greenslade? And so it's about the
Listen,
value of contingent in Atlanta. So we can talk about it.
On the record tonight, the government's purchase of the Grand Bahama is a hot subject in the news. We're going to...
This portion of On the Record brought to you by Generali, your employee benefit solutions provider.
And welcome back. One of the major casualties in Grand Bahama was the northern campus of the University of the Bahamas. The campus was all but destroyed in this storm. We have some images from that facility, as well as the person who we think is best suited to talk about the future of the campus. He's the Vice President of the University of the Bahamas North, Dr. Ian Strachan. Dr. Strachan, welcome again to On the Record.
Good to be here.
I want to talk about first where we are currently. The human capital is most important. So what is the current situation regarding the students and the faculty and staff of the university?
Well, as you could see, we were displaced, but we've been able to bounce back 30 days later. We restarted classes on September 30th. We had a downtown location where we've been able to set up offices. And so I'm proud to say that after a lot of hard work and adjusting, we've been able to restart our semester for those young people and those students who want to. Obviously, not everybody will be up to it because it's been a crazy, experience. We know that some students went to Nassau, some went to Hampton, but we've actually been surprised at the number of students who returned. I would say my gut tells me it's around 70% have come back to class, and that's really encouraging. So obviously, though, the big question is, what's the future going to look like for UB North, given what's happened? And my position is that we need to move core services to downtown and find a new campus.
Let's talk about the campus. During my recent visit there, the first time I passed, I thought, okay, it sustained some damage because it's a distance from the road. And on our way back, we decided to stop in to take a look. I was horrified. The building that houses the classrooms and offices decimated.
Yes. Yeah, the concrete structure itself is fairly sound, but all the administrative offices, the classrooms, the library, the clinic, all of that was gutted. So the first floor basically is just wreckage. So in addition to that, of course, the residence hall, which just opened last May, and we were so excited because we got a 100% increase in the number of students who wanted to stay this September over last. So we were just really feeling really high, particularly with the government's tuition program. We saw a significant hike in attendance, and you leave on Friday, and you think you're coming back, you'll get some water.
Right.
You don't expect to come back and find that your place of work and the place you've been putting in so much energy and building momentum is pretty much wreckage and is in mud, right? So very devastating, very difficult for me and for the team, for all the faculty and staff. But Grand Bahamians they've been through a lot in the last 15
The word
years.
I keep using is resilient.
They are extremely resilient, very proud people, and and they need the university. It has a key role to play. It provides opportunity. It gives people a means of social, economic upward mobility. And so we have to be there for the young people and the working people of Grand Bahama.
What I got out of it, and unfortunately it was my first visit to the campus, but I was struck by, just even in that terrible state, how you've been able to properly duplicate so much of what students receive in terms of the learning and the facilities here. And also, I was even in that horrible state, and I have to tell you, I think I just stood there for about a minute and I just looked around. I could not believe what I was seeing. But I was so taken by what you've been able to duplicate on that campus.
Yeah, UB North offers a very wonderful opportunity because you get to do university, the Bahamas, but you get to do it slightly different, with more space, with more intention, more of a plan, right? As opposed to the original campus, which kind of grew out of government high school and just built,
right,
in a less organized way. It's lovely, but you had an opportunity, and the vision we had was something that would have been very well planned and could be a beautiful alternative where people could come and study, where you didn't have the headaches of traffic and the crime issues that you have. So it could be an alternative for people, and we wanted to set it up where you'd have programs that were peculiar to that campus. So it would grow its own niche, it would have its own areas of specialization, so that you wouldn't just cater to people in northern Bahamas like Abaco and Grand Bahama. A kid from Nassau who wanted to study a particular thing could come to UB North and get an experience of the Bahamas outside of the province. So quite honestly, that's why I took the job too, was I wanted an opportunity to do the university in a different space, and I wanted my children to live in the Bahamas but understand the Bahamas isn't all New Providence. So,
We're very selfish. I always say the students are very selfish
and so,
in how we see the Bahamas. Yeah.
So it's still that awesome opportunity, because as much tragedy, and there's unspeakable tragedy in this occasion, for the university there is a unique opportunity. It was built in a flood zone, it was elevated, but no one anticipated 15 to 20 feet of sea surge.
I was about to say, you can see, looking at the property, you could see it is obviously in an area that can flood.
Yeah.
But when you take a good look at it, it is significantly elevated.
Yes,
and that's was so shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, we can rebuild, and what I would like to see that campus dedicated to now is study of climate change, meteorology, something we've never really trained people to do in our country. I think that campus should be the place where we do that for the first time. Environmental science, sustainable innovation. I want to see that space dedicated to the very forces and the very circumstances and phenomena that destroyed it, right? Because I think we're not doing enough to study and understand it. But obviously when we rebuild it, we've got to do it more intelligently and what we've learned and what we've seen. So you can't just put the first floor back. You can't just put everything back the way you do it. You have to, and then if you build more there, you have to think about the new reality, the new normal.
Higher elevation.
Exactly. I have one of my best friends is a meteorologist, and he's like, look, man, 60 miles an hour will get that water to the East Grand Bahama Highway, because you have a 50-mile bank to the north. So 160 miles an hour will get
you got an ocean.
What you saw. Yeah.
What I noticed too, and you spoke to it earlier on, was the residences.
Yes.
A very sort of unique setup.
Yes.
It looks as if you guys have taken trailers.
Yes, there were containers, yes.
And I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
It sustained a lot of damage, but the structures didn't seem to shift or move. And I worried, when I first saw it, I thought, wow, trailers can become missiles in a situation like this. But
yeah, they held up fairly. I mean, there was damage, but I think the structural engineer put it at about 30% damage. Obviously, the facade fell off, but most of the containers are still in place. Obviously, the windows and doors blew out and everything was blown out. How we use it again will be something we have to think about, and our architecture department is looking at that. In fact, we're also talking to a Dutch university, the University of Miami. We want to really look at how we plan for, prevent, deal with flooding in a very, very progressive and imaginative way. This is really an opportunity for us to learn. And the camp, I really want to see University of Bahamas North be a part of the conversation for us as a nation as to how we really deal with emergencies like this. And so we're having a conference, Hurricane Dorian, Reflecting, Rebuilding, Reimagining, in March of next year. We want to bring people together to look at the storm 360 degrees, the social elements.
So I'm going to commit that we will certainly be a part of that however we can.
Yes, so we want to get the scientists, we want to get the public planners, we want to get the folks from NEMA, we want to get architects, we want to get civil engineers, we want to get ordinary citizens, activists. Because one of the interesting things about this is, let's be dispassionate and look at our capacity.
Yes.
Going through it and having a colleague stuck in his attic with his child and trying to get someone to go get him and understanding that it was just normal people with jet skis out there risking their lives. It raises the question about do we have the capacity? Have we really invested enough to be able to respond to these things, in these emergencies? Having shelters get compromised. There's a whole number of conversations that we need to honestly have. A real inventory of how we prepare and how we build. Are we building high enough? Should our codes be changed? There's so much that we need to look at, because I don't know if we're getting more intelligent. I don't know if we've learned from Floyd to Dorian. I don't know if our policies and our actions reflect enough.
One of the things you said, you used the word dispassionate.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good time to begin to encourage people to have those conversations, because in the aftermath of the storm, there is the death, there is the destruction, there is the loss, there, even for those of us who did not suffer the loss, there's even the sense of hopelessness, or, we've sat there, a lot of us have sat here and thought, what can we do to help? But there are so many other conversations that are necessary that I think need to be driven from the university's level, and from that level, where we remove the anguish and the pain, etc., but we begin to have some different
and the politics.
Yes, most definitely. And begin to have some real intellectual conversations, because there are some key lessons here. For instance, I think to myself all the time, if this hurricane had happened, let's say 10 years ago, when we did not have the technology that we have, cell phone technology, where GPS was able to, people were able to send a pin to say, this is where I am, I need help, or we were able to talk, or how we were able to use social media. If we had had this experience 10 years ago, I wonder where we would be as a country and as a people. But and I wonder, once you get to that point of having this discussion, how do we turn this experience from the university's perspective now into charting a way forward?
Yes, I mean, one of the things we want to see out of the conference is obviously a list of recommendations. I found it interesting, the government's decision to set up a new ministry with an alumnus of the university, Iram Lewis. Congratulations to him. I wish him all the best. This is really, March is, I think, far enough away for us to have some of our nerves come down a little bit.
No,
and to look at things analytically, like I said, from every possible angle. Then there are even the social, economic, and political consequences, the politics of the ethnic tensions and issues about land and access and the place of immigrants. This has really opened up so many sometimes bitter debates, right? But it's important for us to try to look at them and find the high road, find what is best for as many as possible, and to make some hard decisions, make them early, make them now.
You mentioned some of the things that, some of the discussions that have arisen, some of the things that you have spoken to, written about over the years of your time in academia and even in other spheres. But from a social perspective, what else has this hurricane done to us? You and I talked even before this show started about the immigrant or the immigration discussion that has arisen because of this. And I said to you, I think that as difficult as it is, and sometimes even painful as it is, I think it's necessary at this point.
Yeah, it is, and that too is complicated. Looking from it on the ground from Grand Bahama, this was a storm that affected every socioeconomic bracket of people. So you had the poor, whose homes were flooded. The walls and the roof might have been okay, like in central Freeport, but then everything was ruined on the inside, right? So a lot of those people are unemployed. A lot of those people, their homes are uninsured. Then you also had wealthy people in the East, on the other side of the bridge, whose homes were destroyed, and they own businesses, and they're immigrants essentially. But are they gonna want to reinvest after what they just went through? How many times is the island gonna face this type of bashing, right? And you expect people to just come back up. And then of course there's these issues of Haitian immigration and our notion of what the Bahamas is and isn't, and who belongs and who doesn't. And I think as academics, as people in the academic sphere, our goal should be to elevate these conversations, to provide people with, as much as possible, objective truths, facts, that have been empirically gathered. And then also to provide them with some tools to look at their history. So that's something that I hope would come out of this as well. And I think also, as the writer in me also hopes that we don't lose this opportunity to honor all of these people who have lost their lives and honor all of the people who were heroic in these moments. Because I have to say, this experience was really inspiring. At the same time, it was really heartbreaking. Because you know that they were just ordinary people just doing all sorts of incredible things. And even just fathers and mothers trying to save their children. And these stories need to be recorded, and the university has a part to play in that too. I think from an oral history standpoint, one of the things that I've pledged is that we will make an effort to begin to document and interview people and make sure that for generations to come, Dorian isn't forgotten and the stories aren't forgotten.
Yeah. And the people, those who died as well as those who have survived.
Exactly.
Because there's so much to document.
Because this has always been something that, well, throughout my life, this has happened to other Caribbean islands. Mountainous islands where you've had mudslides and they don't have the building codes we have, and so you've heard of hundreds of people missing and dying. This isn't happening in the Bahamas, but no more. It's happened. Yeah.
It's now our reality, Ian. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We're going to be back with our final segment on the record right after this. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true, and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Listen, what is more dangerous than
Gentlemen,
corruption?
we've got to move
Is it
very
corruption
quickly. Let's
or
wrap up.
integrity?
It's all On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. And welcome to On the Record. This is our final segment. I'm joined by the Vice President of the University of the Bahamas North, Dr. Ian Strachan. We started this discussion talking about the university, and one of the things I wanted to get into was the opportunity for some students to continue their education at Hampton University. It was something that was widely published on social media and talked about. I want to talk a little bit about how that happened and what's the future for those students.
Well, this all eventuated from a gesture by the president of Hampton, Dr. Harvey. And ironic, people don't know this, but a number of universities have made similar offers. Not as generous, but they've made offers. FSU, FIU, Kent State, other universities have reached out. And I think it was largely a sense of when you look at those images, you figure there's no way they're coming back, and they just wanted to help. So we're grateful for that kind of willingness to support us. And I think just under 50 students would have taken up that opportunity.
That's a significant amount.
That's a big amount. That's about 10% of our student population. And they about 100 went to Nassau, 50 stayed and were integrated into the Nassau campus, and about 50 took the Hampton opportunity, which is a study abroad for 1 semester. And we're proud that we've been able to pick ourselves back up and start our semester, and some will come back, some may not. But I think the bigger opportunity is for us to reach out, and they are reaching to us, to all of the hundreds of universities in North America that are willing to help in various ways, and some are doing so. For instance, NYU is donating computers, and we're talking to foundations. So I'll say this too, not just about the university, selfishly about the university, but really the entire display of concern and generosity and giving in Grand Bahama, because that's where I am, has just been extremely heartwarming. I mean, everything from Royal Caribbean giving out 15,000 meals a day. It's just been the physicians volunteering their time. It has really been an inspirational thing. And almost every church in Grand Bahama is active, giving people meals, helping people get clothing. It's really been touching and inspiring how this community is mobilized. Rotary has been doing a fantastic job getting people water. It's just been incredible. It's just been incredible.
Do you think this has shown, well, two things I want to ask. One, I think we touched on it just before we went into the break. Those heroes out there, the everyday people who really came, gave themselves, risked their own lives, opened their homes, gave what they had, did one, what does that say about that human spirit in the Bahamas that was almost lost?
Yes,
because we didn't see it,
yes,
day to day. And then, what does the outpouring of support, what does that say about how the Bahamas is viewed by the rest of the world?
I have to say that's really encouraging. I'll answer the second part first. That's really encouraging, I have to admit. It feels like we're loved. It feels like people care. It feels like people have an affinity and affection for these islands and for our people and our culture, and they came to our aid. And I think that's just wonderful. I mean, there's absolutely nothing bad I can say about that. That's just huge. That's just huge. The first part you said is really important, because I have to say, you don't have that many examples. When I was growing up as a boy born in 1969, you had heroes that were, they led the social revolution and all the rest of it.
Political heroes,
yes,
social
they
heroes,
were.
yeah.
Yeah, but, there's so few examples of Bahamian heroism outside of athletics, because it's easy to be a huge Shawnee fan and a Chris Brown fan, right? But the other important thing is, you see these heroes, but it's important for there to be witnesses, because that way the story gets told again and again. So of a man who opens his house and has 20 neighbors in his home, that's just huge. And I think, again, as a storyteller, it's really important that these stories get told. Children's books, histories, documentaries, TV shows. We need to preserve it because it shows us at our best. And, a storm finds the weak things and it exposes them. But a storm and crisis also reveals the strength. And I think we see the weakness in the conflict and the division on ethnic grounds and so on. But then you also see the incredible strength in the courage people showed, in the kindness and the selflessness people are showing, right? So I think I feel a new pride as a Bahamian, I have to say. And it's funny, people were trying to get me to leave, and they were trying to get me to take my kids out of Grand Bahama. Now, I just thank God that I was in a place that was safe, because if I was not, I would have to live with that for the rest of my life. But I wanted them to experience this. I wanted them to see, because this is what it is to be a Bahamian too, because this happens every year. And I wanted them to also see us coming together and people serving and people trying to help each other. So I think this is a wonderful, as horrible as it is, and I don't in any way wish to minimize how bad this has been and is. It's still been a lot of beauty in it. And definitely I think for University of the Bahamas, it's a chance for a new beginning to be better and stronger. Because I think in downtown Freeport, we will bring life to the city. We will bring economic activity to the city. I think we'll see an increase in enrollment. I think we will be able to expand a lot easier. I understand the vision of why we were placed where we were. It was an attempt to start something new, but it didn't work out the way we wanted. And I think there is still a use for that campus that can be very important. But I think this is a golden opportunity to do something that is recession-proof and hurricane-proof in downtown Freeport. And I think Grand Bahamians would stand up and applaud if University of the Bahamas opens its doors in downtown in a new campus in August of 2020.
Sounds good. I would like to know, though, people watching this wanting to know what they can do to help, how they can assist. What can we do? How can we provide support to the university and, most importantly, to the students and the faculty and staff who've been. And I have to say this: the day I went there were two ladies sitting at the campus. There was a security officer and another lady, and they were sitting there. They greeted me. We talked. They got permission for us to come and shoot. And they were so gracious and so accommodating, and the security escorted us. And when I was leaving, I said to them, I just want to thank you, for being here and still manning the ship when you have run aground, when there's destruction. And that really warmed my heart. I didn't get their names, so I hope someone gets a message to them. But, how can we help your students, your faculty and staff who've all been affected by this?
We surveyed over 200 students, and we found that 25% of them were displaced, right? And we surveyed them to ask them what their needs are. And it was the fundamental things, water, personal items, and food and clothing, right? So there's been a lot of giving, but obviously there's a lot of need as well. And so on the university website, you can find a tab to assist us with relief, but you could also contact me or the Dean of Students here in Nassau, Joe Stubbs, or the Dean of Students in Grand Bahama, T.O. Cooper, to provide assistance. We're going to have to rebuild this campus. But as I tell my colleagues, the most important thing is that we provide a vision so that people know what we're trying to achieve and what the goals are and what the specific needs are. And so we're working on crafting that, because it's not going to happen overnight. So we're trying to create a vision of what this new campus will be. And so then people will know, well, here are the science labs we need. This is the library and how we envision it. These are the classrooms and what they used to have and what we want them to have now. And here's the media that we need. And so we ask people to be patient. It's going to take us a few months to be able to craft that vision and to have a concrete idea. But we're going to get there. And so I want to make sure that when people do give, they can see clearly what they're giving to, and they can be properly reported on how it was used. Sure. But in the first instance, food, clothing, water, essentials, those things can be bundled and delivered to the University of Bahamas North, shipped to us with our name on it, and we will create the care packages for individuals as they need them. And the other part too is the social, the psychological support. We've had psychologists come down and work with us, and they're going to work with our students. And so if you have experience in that area, if you want to be trained in that area, you want to give in that area, you can come and you can help us, you can reach out to us. You can write me, ian.strawn@ub.edu.bs. It's not going to be an overnight thing. We're going to be rebuilding and recovering for a year, 2 years. So it's a long distance run. And there will be opportunities for people to help.
I've got to ask from a Grand Bahamian perspective. I mean, you're a plant in Grand Bahama.
Well, my father was born in West End.
So all right, okay, so you've got the connection. But everyone I talk to from every island, I ask, what is it like? How is life returning to some sense of normalcy? What is it like for you day to day?
Yes, every day gets a little better. Every day gets a little easier. And I'm, again, as I said, one of the fortunate ones. I only ran without power for 13 days, they've cleaned up the streets. There's still a lot of, the lines for the free food and so on, but you are seeing more normalcy as power gets restored, water is restored. The water is still a little salty.
I had my own experience when I was there.
The water's a little salty. Yeah. It's getting less salty. The more it rains, it gets better.
Okay. All right.
1 or 2 traffic lights are back on. But generally, people can get their needs met for their essential living. So I feel for folks who may be in shelters, if they're from Grand Bahama, they might be better off coming back because there are so many organizations that are there to try and focus just on you as opposed to in Nassau there's so much going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's a good message too. You may want to try and think about getting back to get restarted.
I think you could come back and you could be okay. There's also a lot of real estate in Grand Bahama. There's an opportunity, I think, if the government is creative and business people are creative, to see how they could restore some of that housing because people have been displaced. But I think there's room. There's definitely room in Grand Bahama.
Lots of room, yeah.
You know, and so that's something that I hope the government looks at. But generally speaking, I think the amount of help has really balanced the despair that people could be feeling. Because people were really hopeful. The announcement about the Carnival Port and the purchase of the hotel, people were really anxious to see something big happen in Grand Bahama, right? They could return. And then this storm, this hell of a storm, right? But I think that has been tempered by some of the huge generosity. Sure. That now has to be followed up with some big, bold decisions.
I mean, and I have to ask too, how was the announcement of the Carnival Port, the signing of that and the announcement that will move forward, how was that met?
Man, it's welcome. People need jobs. There's so much unemployment. To have to deal with your house being destroyed and you're unemployed, I mean, that's a lot. So the biggest thing that can happen for Grand Bahamians is employment. And I think the Carnival Cruise Port can be a big one. I'm encouraged that they want to continue. I hope that Royal Caribbean will continue and have success. But again, too, I think it's about, we also, like I said, need to put thought into how we rebuild. Because if you're just going right back to the same place...
Can't be same business as usual. Building the same
well, that's
structures.
easy though, right? So
it is easy.
So, but it would be a mistake. So,
then more expensive in the long run.
Yes. So I think that's where government and the planners and the policymakers have to step in. There are times when governments must spend. There are times when governments have tied the purse strings. This is the time to spend.
Yeah, for sure. Ian, Dr. Strachan, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for putting that into perspective for us. It's very important, I think. The life of a university is very important to the life of a country. And I know the many years it took to get us to university status and everything that comes along with it. This has obviously been a debilitating blow in some instances, but this discussion has given me hope that out of this, something greater will come. Particularly as we begin to study climate change and the effects of storms like this. And I hope, that the university will continue to lead the way. I'm very excited about what's going to come out of this March conference.
Yeah.
I'm going to encourage you to make sure that you include a media perspective in that as well, because how we are covering storms has changed tremendously.
Good point.
And it is a huge challenge for us, particularly when you have multiple islands in this instance that have been affected, and certainly what our role will be. And we're looking forward to that. And however we can help in that respect, please feel free to reach out.
And thank you for continuing to focus on this.
Yes. No, this is important. This is important to us. This is important to the country. Yeah. Everything else to me that's happening, I tell people, is secondary. Until we can see that light shining from both islands. And we talked about Grand Bahama, but certainly Abaco is certainly there in our view as well. But until that light shines from both islands and we can see and things are really at a state of normalcy, then we're going to continue to do this for as long as we can. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks so much.
We appreciate it, and all the best to you, and whatever we can do to help, please let us know.
Absolutely.
We certainly hope that you've enjoyed our show tonight. I want to say special thanks to Dr. Ian Strachan, my guest, also to everyone who's participated, my technical staff. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.